Okay, I wasn't going to document this because everybody and their brother does it. Revamping my old JLU. I put underdrive gears in the front and rear, 11% in the front and 33% in the rear, so it'll give me about a 20-something overdrive in the front. But I also switched out the stock axles for OGRC CVDs, trimmed the axle housing to get more rotation out of the spindle. I just finished putting it together and I was blown away. I turned up the dual rate a little bit. The difference is amazing. This is my deadbolt stock axles. So I'm going to be doing this a little more often. Even this one, it's 4-wheel steer. But anyway, swap the battery to the front, and the ESC to the rear, and relocated the shocks. Anyway, I had a front bumper mount. I trimmed the ends a little bit and used it as a spreader between the frame rails to have something to thread the shock into. I put a hole between the stock shock tower and the battery tray screw. I tried this one, it was just too steep, and tried that one, it was too straight up and down and just jacked the body way up. To get the battery, I haven't finished this yet, but I back cut the bosses on the old receiver tray and then heated it and folded it down so the battery will sit there. The only reason I'm doing that standing up because it'll end up, let's see, what am I trying to say? If I was laying it flat, putting it down here puts a third of the battery below that line, the tray, and a third will be even with if the battery was laying here, and a third will be above it. So overall, it's just a little lower. That's what I had done on my deadbolt. Worked out pretty good. This one's a little bit looser, so I'm gonna just make a little clamp of some kind to hold the battery. A millimeter or so, maybe a little more, off the end of the cups. A little half moon. Focus. Anyway, there's all kinds of videos showing that. Whether I'm going to be able to use it all with the stock body is debatable, but still, that's just crazy. Anyway, that didn't last long. I got it all together. And right toward the end, and I have the steering dual rate turned down. It gets really tight. So tight. Can you hear that? And there's bogging the motor. Kind of bummed. So it's effectively less turning than the stock setup. I do have the bearings out of the end of the axle tubes, which apparently you're supposed to do with these CVDs. Not sure what the deal is. I mean, it does turn a little better, but let me adjust this. Yeah, I'm really loving the gearing, but at throttle, didn't let off the throttle, but it just stops the truck when you're turning. And you take it apart and everything feels loose, free, seems like it should work, but it doesn't. See, I'm full reverse. Now if I let go of the steering, start moving. Unfortunately, the axles were $15 and a few minutes of carving so you can get a full turn of the knuckles. Yeah, I'm not sure what to do. Kind of hate to put it back, but although I would like to put it back to see if it has something to do with the gearing. I've got I can't see how the 11% gearing in the front would affect the steering. It isn't consistent though. Yeah, it's stuck. If I let go of the wheel, it'll move, but sucks. I really want the steering, but I'm not paying $70 or whatever for a set of axles. You can see the, oops, out of frame. It won't move. I don't know if you can see that. I can zoom in. Walk. That's me, full lock, hitting the throttle. It won't go till I release the wheel. Bummer. The motor's a little warm, but servo's cold. Don't quite understand. We did add some weights. I think I mentioned earlier, repositioned the electronics and battery up forward. So all in all, it behaves a lot better. except for the steering. See? That's me applying throttle, but the body will flex, but it just doesn't want to go. Not quite. Come on. Yeah. Back to the drawing board. I had this thing apart a dozen times at least. Everything's loose and free and floppy, but when you got the full steer, it would just bind up the motor and would just lock up. And then turn this off. In desperation, I'm looking at the knuckles because I put the bearings back in, the inside axle bearings, and it didn't make any difference whatsoever. Which on these CVDs, you're supposed to take that outer bearing off. It kind of binds the axle. So kind of led me toward the knuckles. And I had Endura brass knuckles. And I swapped out the stock ones back in, and it works bitchin'. I don't know, I guess I could have measured them, but I didn't. If the ID of the brass knuckles are a little bit smaller, although I don't see any indication of it was rubbing or anything, but don't quite get it. Bottom line is it works. Kind of hate to lose that weight, but and I also have the dual rate turned back up. Before, every time I turn full lock, it would just lock up the motor. I don't get it. I have to look online and see if anybody else had this issue with brass knuckles and using the OGRC CVDs. But that turning radius is just awesome. I think my battery's about dead. Yeah, dual rate is turned all the way up. stoked. The only real point of this, if you're doing the CVD axles in a stock housing to get more steering and you run into some binding problems, if you have brass knuckles, try to put back in your stock and see if that, I don't really believe it, but it fixed it. I just don't know what it could have been. But yeah, if these were the brass knuckles, you wouldn't even think about starting. All's well that ends well. Anyway, we're not documenting. This had me going for a few hours trying to figure out what the heck was wrong. Later. Turning radius on this is I don't know if this is going to show or not. The front wheel's actually pulling this up. Anyway. Okay, that's all for now.